So the other night on YouTube, I was searching around and I came across a couple of people who were sharing their autographs that they've collected in their WWE Encyclopedias, and I thought, well, that's a great idea. I'm going to do the same thing because I also collect autographs, and I know I really enjoy seeing other people's collections, and so I thought I would share mine as well. So this is the third edition of the encyclopedia. Came out in 2016. This was a gift that I gave to my son for Christmas 2017, shortly after I introduced him to the world of wrestling when he was 10 years old then. I was born in the 70s. I grew up watching mostly WWF in the 80s. I kind of fell away from it in the 90s, and really for a very long time until my son was 10, just 3 years ago. And I started showing him the old DVDs I had collected of WrestleManias, Royal Rumbles, and he really got into it, and I got into it all over again. So then we started doing meet and greets together in early 2018. Actually, our first meet and greets were at WrestleMania in New Orleans, Access, WrestleCon, and we started collecting our autographs then. So as of today, which is Thursday, October the 8th, 2020, we have met 170 different people, superstars, and the total is, I believe, 292 signatures, where some of them have signed this book more than once. So we'll take a look here. Here's some of the people who don't have a page to sign, so we just went with the front cover here, or the inside page. Nikki Cross is our first one here. She signed this at WrestleCon, WrestleMania Access in New York last year. This is Earl Hebner. He signed this at WrestleCade in Winston-Salem, North Carolina in 2018. This is Cedric Alexander. He signed this in Toronto last summer during the SummerSlam weekend, the meet and greets. And here is Bob Caudle. He signed this last year at WrestleCade 2019, Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Okay, so we have 3MB and Heath Slater signed this. Actually, this just happened last weekend on October 3rd in Julian, West Virginia for All Star Wrestling. And he also signed down here as well when he saw that he was in this picture on the Adam Rose page. He signed right there. Here's Abe Knuckleball Schwartz, also known as Steve Lombardi. He signed this. This was our 80s Wrestling Con 2 in Freehold, New Jersey, 2019. October, I believe, 2019. Okay, then we have Al Snow. He signed this in Pikeville, Kentucky at the Pikeville Comic-Con, August of 2018. Here is Alexa Bliss. She signed this at MegaCon 2018 in Orlando, Florida. My son and I, we went down there to meet her, Braun Strowman, Shinsuke, and John Cena. You'll see all those a little bit later. There's Chad Gable, signed the American Alpha page. This was at WrestleMania Access in New York last year. And then Ron Simmons signed the APA as Farouk. This was at WrestleCade 2018. My all-time favorite, who I wish I could have met. Okay, Apollo Crews. This was one of the first signatures we ever got. This was at WrestleMania Access in New Orleans, 2018. That was the first day that we ever got signatures on here. By the way, the first two signatures that we ever got at that Access, first two signatures ever in this book, were Rhino and Heath Slater. So when we met Heath last weekend, that was our second time meeting him. Okay, here's the Barbarian. He came to Barbersville, West Virginia, not far from where I grew up. This was a small independent promotion. I believe it was called Bluegrass Championship Wrestling. This was in the summer of 2018. Actually, I think it was September. And then Barry Windham. This was one of the very few autographs that I was not present for. I could not be at this event, so my dad took my son to it. This was also in Julian, West Virginia for All Star Wrestling. That's Gary Dameron's promotion. This was in February of 2019. And Batista. This was last year at the GalaxyCon Louisville, Kentucky. Not too far from us, about a 3-hour drive. We drove down for the day just to get Batista. It was definitely worth it. Really hope to get the Berserker someday. Alright, Big Man Steel, aka Tugboat and Typhoon. This was outside of Columbus, Ohio, summer of 2018, at an event called Wrestle Legends. It was a suburb of Columbus called Hilliard, Ohio, and we walked up to his table and showed him the book, and he said, "You know, I'm in this book 3 times," and he opened up to all 3 pages, and he signed all 3 of them for us, even though we only paid for 1 autograph. He was super kind and friendly. Really hope to get the big show someday. By the way, one of my goals is actually to fill the pages the entries who have at least a full page or more. So Big Show would be included in that. Billy Gunn. This was WrestleCade 2018, and he also signed right here. And then we have Billy Jack Haynes, one of the ones I grew up watching in the 80s. This was at WrestleCon last year in New York. Okay, Buddy Murphy. This was at the SummerSlam meet and greets last summer in Toronto in August of 2019. Bob Backlund. I've seen on a lot of people's autographs he puts this PMA, Positive Mental Attitude. Bob Backlund signed this at WrestleCade in 2018. Another one I really wish I could have met. My favorite manager of all time. And commentator. Okay, Sunny. This was also with the Barry Windham autograph. She was at the event in Julian, West Virginia last year in February. She's the only autograph in this book that I have not personally met. My son and my father got this autograph. I did later meet Barry Windham last year at WrestleCon in New York. Also at WrestleCon New York, the Boogeyman signed this, as well as Booker T. Both of these were at that WrestleCon in New York. Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard, the Brainbusters. Okay, here's another one from that MegaCon in Orlando with Alexa Bliss. There was Braun Strowman. Very happy to meet him. Bret the Hitman Hart, one of the first signatures I got in here. This was at WrestleCon in New Orleans, 2018. And then Gerald Briscoe, this was last year's WrestleCon in New York. Another full page one I hope to get someday, although I know it's extremely unlikely. Okay, and we have The Brood, signed by all three. Edge and Christian signed this early 2019 in Lexington, Kentucky at the Lexington Comic-Con. This was in March of 2019, right before WrestleMania 35. And then later Gangrel signed it at WrestleCade in North Carolina in 2019. Okay, Brooklyn Brawler. We saw the Abe Knuckleball Schwartz earlier. He also signed this at the same time. This was at the 80s Wrestling Con in Freehold, New Jersey, 2019. Alright, one of my favorite ones here in the book. We got both of the Brothers of Destruction. Undertaker, well, Kane signed it first. This was in Pikeville, Kentucky, the same time we met Al Snow. Pikeville, Kentucky, that was, I think it was September or August 2018. And then Undertaker signed this at the Charleston Sports Pub, Charleston, South Carolina, in December 2018. And I'll talk about that trip a little more in detail when I get to his main page. Undertaker, by the way, is my son's all-time favorite wrestler. Another great one I wish I could have met. If I had only started these meet and greets a little earlier, I probably could have. Brutus the Barber Beefcake, he signed this at the Wrestle Legends in near Columbus, Ohio in I think it was August of 2018. Buff Bagwell, WrestleCade 2018. Okay, Bushwhacker Luke. This was same one with Brutus Beefcake. This was the Wrestle Legends in Hilliard, Ohio, outside of Columbus, summer of 2018. By the way, Butch, I was planning on going to the gathering this year when they were going to bring Butch all the way in from New Zealand, and unfortunately because of the coronavirus it got canceled. I really hope he can come back to the next one. Such a rare autograph to get, for sure. Jim Cornette signed the Camp Cornette. This was another all-star wrestling event. This one in Madison, West Virginia, at the Madison Civic Center. He also signed his page that you'll see later. Abdullah the Butcher. We'll get the glare off of there. So he does not have his own page on here, and this is actually the only picture where he appears is on the Carlos Colon page, so I had him sign there. This was at WrestleCade 2018 in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And if WrestleCon had not been canceled this year in Tampa, he was the top of our list. We were going to get this page filled this year in Tampa. Here, Christian, that was also at Lexington Comic-Con in March of 2019. Another one I hope to get. I know my son really hopes to. Alright, Colonel Mustafa, Iron Sheik. This one I thought, along with the Iron Sheik's main page that you'll see later, I thought I would never have a chance to meet him, since being that I started so late at collecting autographs, and I thought, well, and I'd heard from other people that he just doesn't go around. You know, his health was too poor. He doesn't tour anymore. He doesn't do meet and greets anymore. And then lo and behold, last year in February, they brought him into the Mad Monster Con in Charlotte, North Carolina. And so that was on a Friday night. I finished working up Friday, and I drove straight to Charlotte, a 5-hour drive, got his autograph, and then woke up the next morning and drove home. I was so happy about that. Alright, Haku signed this at the 80s Wrestling Con in New Jersey last year. And here's another Heath Slater one, just signed last weekend in Julian, West Virginia. And Cowboy Bob Orton was at the Wrestle Legends in Hilliard, Ohio, summer of 2018. Okay, Daivari. This was at WrestleMania Access in New York last year. Daniel Bryan. This was at the SummerSlam meet and greets in Toronto last summer. One of the main reasons we drove all the way to Canada. There's David Hart Smith. He was at WrestleCade last year in New York, North Carolina, 2019. Okay, so Dean Douglas, Shane Douglas. This was in Chillicothe, Ohio, about 2 weeks before last year's WrestleMania. This would have been March of 2019. I had met him once previously, where he signed his main page, but I didn't realize that he had this obscure character back in the mid-90s when I wasn't really watching wrestling. So I approached him to have him sign this page, and his handler said he does not sign Dean Douglas, but he will sign it as Shane Douglas. So, okay, that works for me. I take it he was not too thrilled with that character. Okay, Axe and Smash. Axe signed this at WrestleCade 2018. And then Smash signed it at 80s Wrestling Con in New Jersey last year. They were both there together, but Axe had already signed it, so I got Smash. One of my favorite pages. Another main reason why I drove to Toronto last summer for the SummerSlam meet and greets was to get Triple H. Now, Billy Gunn was the first to sign this page. That was WrestleCade 2018. Shawn Michaels then signed it at WrestleCon in New York. And then Triple H signed it in Toronto. And then 2 days later, X-Pac signed it at the Steel City Con in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, August of 2019. I just need Road Dogg now. DDP, WrestleCon in New York. Yeah, 2019. Alright, Kevin Nash. I kind of wish I had him sign this much larger to fill the page. Kevin Nash, this was WrestleCade 2018. Okay, now we've got 3 doinks on here. Never got to meet the original one, Matt Bourne, but number 2 doink, Steve Keirn. He was the mirror doink that jumped out from under the ring at that WrestleMania. I think it was in Las Vegas when they defeated Crush. So Steve Keirn signed it as Doink number 2. And then, that was at WrestleCade 2018. And then Doink number 3, Steve Lombardi. This was at the 80s Wrestling Con in New Jersey last year. And then this blue one is Ray Apollo, Doink the Clown. So 3 Doinks on that page. And then there's D-Lo. This was WrestleCon in New York. And then we met Michael Hayes at last year's WrestleCade. He signed the Freebirds page, which we'll see soon. And then I asked him if he would sign Doc Hendricks, and he was like, well, I guess so. I guess he wasn't too thrilled with that bit as well. But he was gracious enough to sign it anyway. Okay, now Dominic DeNucci, an old-timer. He was at that event when we met the Barbarian in Barboursville, West Virginia. He was there with Barbarian and Shane Douglas. That was the first time we met Shane Douglas, when he signed his main page. And also the ECW page, which we'll see very soon. Really would love to get this guy's signature, but I know he's in Hawaii and doesn't travel anymore. So that's going to be tough. Alright, so Brutus Beefcake, he signed this the second time we met him, which was... Actually, I was by myself. This was the 80s Wrestling Con in New Jersey. Greg Valentine, he signed this, I believe it was at WrestleCon in New York. Yes, that was it. And then got both of the Dudleys. Devon signed it first, and then Bubba Ray signed it. They were both at the same event, which was WrestleCade 2019 in North Carolina. Really wish I could have met both of these guys, Dynamite Kid, Dusty Rhodes. I grew up watching both of them. Okay, so here's that ECW page where Shane Douglas signed it in Barboursville, West Virginia. That was about summer of 2018. Alright, and then the Dudleys also signed this page. It's hard to see Bubba Ray because it's in silver. There it is. Bubba Ray and Devon. This was WrestleCade last year. Would have loved to have met Elizabeth. Okay, Edge. This was at WrestleCon in New Orleans. This was actually at the end of the day on, I believe it was that Saturday. Things were just wrapping up and people were packing up to leave, and we hurried over to his table. And he was just about to leave, and we got his autograph right in the nick of time. Yeah, WrestleCon in New Orleans. Which was the first time we met Edge. Now these both came in Lexington. Last year. They were both there at the same time. Lexington Comic-Con, March of 2019. Okay, Epico, that was WrestleMania Access in New York, as well as Eric Rowan at the same event. Eric Bischoff was WrestleCon in New York. Okay, so now we've got 3 out of the 4 Evolution. Ric Flair actually signed this one first. This was at WrestleCon in New York. I guess he just happened to have this blue pen. I'm not even sure what kind of a pen or marker it was, but it was very thick, and it left a spot over here on this side of the page when it shut. And for weeks and weeks afterward, that page was always stuck together to this page. But the signature turned out okay. And then later, Randy Orton, we got this one also in Toronto at the SummerSlam meet and greets last summer. And then Batista. When we met Batista at the GalaxyCon in Louisville, that was the second page we had him sign. When we met Triple H at the SummerSlam meet and greets, I really wanted him to sign this page, but the person who was handling that meet and greet felt like we were taking up too much time and said we had enough autographs. So just one autograph short of having this one filled. Okay, like I said, there's Michael Hayes. I told him to sign big and he went big. Michael Hayes, that was at the WrestleCade in 2019. And Jimmy Garvin was there, but he previously signed this page just a few weeks before in Madison, West Virginia at All-Star Wrestling. That would have been in November 2019. Okay, Fatu, also Rikishi. He signed this at WrestleCon in New York, 2019. Alright, one of my favorite pages here. 4 Horsemen. Got lots of them here. Jeff Jarrett was the first to sign this. WrestleCade 2018. I believe Barry Windham was next. That's the tiny one down here. That was the one in Julian, West Virginia that my son and my father went to. From there, I believe Sting was next. I'm not really sure of the order anymore. I think it was Sting. This was actually in Lexington, the same time that Edge and Christian were there. We've got Lex Luger, Ric Flair, Arn, J.J. Dillon, and Tully Blanchard. All of those came at WrestleCon in New York last year. And then finally Sid signed it at WrestleCade in North Carolina last year. Having trouble with the glare on that page. Okay, Gangrel, that was WrestleCade 2019. And Gary Michael Capetta was at WrestleCade 2018. Alright, very fortunate to meet Mean Gene Okerlund, WrestleCon in New Orleans. And then George South, this was WrestleCade 2018. Another one of my favorites from my childhood who I never got to meet. If only I had started this sooner. Alright, Gilbert signed it in silver. I wish he hadn't. This was also an All-Star Wrestling in Madison, West Virginia. This was, when was this? Oh, that was the same time Jimmy Garvin was there. That was in November of 2019. And then Godfather signed this at WrestleCon in New York. Jimmy Hart, probably the person we have met the most, and each time we meet him we have him sign a new page. This one was done in, it was in Kentucky, I forget the name of the town. South of Lexington anyway. And the main reason I drove there was to meet Hillbilly Jim, who you'll see soon. Hillbilly Jim and Jimmy Hart were both there. This was in the summer of 2019. Alright, Goldberg. This was one of the very first signatures we got. This was WrestleMania Access. He was one of the premium guests in New Orleans the year that he went into the Hall of Fame. This was my son's number 2 favorite guy. One of the main reasons we went to that event was to meet Goldberg. And almost skipped Henry Godwin. This was in Barbersville, West Virginia last summer. That Bluegrass Championship Wrestling. Henry Godwin and Mr. Hughes were there. Alright, Gold Dust. This was in Lexington, Kentucky at the Lexington Comic Con. Same time that Edge and Christian were there. He was just about to sign it in black, and I said, "Oh, no, do you have a gold one?" And yes, he did. You can't sign in black when your name is Gold Dust. Okay, this was that Mad Monster Con in Charlotte, North Carolina, February 2019. Rather than have him try to spell that out, I just told him to sign it as Iron Sheik. Okay, Greg Valentine. We met him twice. This was the first time we met him. This was at the Wrestle Legends show in Hilliard, Ohio, outside of Columbus, 2018. Hacksaw Jim Duggan, one of the nicest guys we've met. We love talking to him. He signed this at WrestleCon in New Orleans. We've met him 3 times. King Haku, this was at the 80s Wrestling Con in October of 2019 in New Jersey. Really hope to get the Hardy Boys someday. I would have actually probably gotten both of them in Tampa this year if that had not been canceled. Alright, another one of the very first signatures we got. This was at WrestleCon in New Orleans. The Great Harley Race. And then, okay, we got a lot going on this page. So we met Bret Hart twice. When he signed his main page, that was all that we asked of him that time. I was new to the game at that time and really didn't have a good game plan as to how many times I would have people sign their pages. So thankfully we got to meet him a second time, which was at WrestleCon in New York last year, and had him sign the Hart Foundation page. Jimmy Hart signed it at the Wrestle Legends show in Hilliard, Ohio, 2018. And I'm really kicking myself for this one because I did actually meet the Anvil at the WrestleCon in New Orleans. My son and I actually got a triple photo op with all 3 of these guys there. But I didn't think about having him sign the book, and I really wish I had. And then David Hart Smith signed this at WrestleCade 2019, just last year in North Carolina. Okay, so Fatu, this was another one from WrestleCon in New York. And then Afa signed this at WrestleCade 2019. Heath Slater, the second autograph we ever got in this book. Him and Rhino. They were at a table together at WrestleMania Access in New Orleans, and they were the first table we walked up to. Would have loved to have met Hercules. Hillbilly Jim, this was that event in Kentucky. I still can't think of the name of the town. It was about an hour south of Lexington. Just a real small event. I can't even remember the name of the company that was there. But he signed this page twice for his page and the Hillbillies. Very thankful to meet him. Honky Tonk Man. This was in Chillicothe, Ohio. Just a couple of weeks before WrestleMania 35. This was an event, I think it's run by Bobby Fulton actually. It's called World Classic Professional Big Time Wrestling. Honky Tonk Man was there, Ricky Steamboat, Jimmy Hart, Shane Douglas, and Bobby Fulton himself. So, Hornswoggle, this was WrestleCon in New Orleans. Never got to meet Howard Finkel, unfortunately. He was high on my wish list. Okay, here's a rare one, because I'm told that Kane does not, or Glenn Jacobs does not regularly sign for Isaac Yankem. However, he did this time. This was at the Pikeville Comic-Con, Pikeville, Kentucky, August of 2018. Alright, Hulk Hogan. I found out about this about 3 days before it happened. This happened in Cleveland, Ohio, August of 2018. It was at a sports collectors convention. He was the only wrestler there. Thankfully, I found out about it just in time. Cleveland's about a 5-hour drive from me, so I said, well, we are definitely going to get that. Wishing now that I would have also had him sign a couple of other pages, but I just wasn't thinking forward enough at that time. Actually had a ticket to meet him at WrestleMania Access in Tampa, and then that got canceled. We would have added more signatures then. There's the one, Iron Sheik, from the Mad Monster Con in Charlotte, North Carolina, February 2019. Got to meet IRS at WrestleCade 2018. I kind of wish now I would have had him spell out Erwin R. Shyster. That little IRS just doesn't fill the page quite right. Okay, Tama was WrestleCon New York and Haku at the 80s Wrestling Con last year in New Jersey. Okay, Jacqueline was WrestleCon in New York. And then Jake the Snake, we got this one at WrestleCon in New Orleans. Very thankful to meet him too, one of my favorites as a kid. Alright, Jeff Jarrett from WrestleCade 2018, right after he went into the Hall of Fame. Jerry the King Lawler, WrestleCon in New Orleans, 2018. One of the first to sign it. Here's a good rare one I was thankful to get. Jesse Ventura. This was WrestleCon in New York last year. And then Jim Cornette in Madison, West Virginia, April 2019. This was about a week after WrestleMania 35. Most of the Midnight Express were there with him. It was a great meet and greet. Okay, Jim Ross, WrestleCon in New Orleans. Jimmy Hart, this was the first time we ever met him. I think I've met him 4 or 5 times now. This was at WrestleMania Access. He and Teddy Long shared a table. WrestleMania Access in New Orleans. Alright, this was when we met Gilberg. He also signed the Job Squad as Dwayne Gill. This was Madison, West Virginia, November 2019. All-Star Wrestling. That's a Gary Dameron promotion. Another full page one we hope to get someday, JBL. We were going to meet John Morrison and The Miz at WrestleMania Access this year in Tampa. We had tickets for that until it was canceled, so that would have been a great addition. Okay, John Cena. Very glad we got this one when we did, as he's pretty well impossible to get now that he's all about Hollywood. This was at MegaCon Orlando, May of 2018. And it was about a month after WrestleMania 34 in New Orleans when he challenged The Undertaker, and thankfully The Undertaker showed up. That was the main reason that I took my son to New Orleans, with Undertaker being his favorite wrestler. We wanted a chance to get to see him live before it was too late, and thankfully we did. And we went up to John Cena's table in Orlando. We told him basically that, said the only reason I took him down there was to see if Undertaker would show up, and John Cena's reply was, that's the only reason I went too. Very thankful to meet him. Very nice guy. Would have loved to have met Junkyard Dog. Always liked him when I was a kid. Okay, Kama. That was from WrestleCon in New York. And Kamala, I really, really wanted to meet him. I knew the chances were slim, but I really, really hoped I could have. Loved his character. He just died about a month ago. Alright, Kelly Kelly from WrestleCade 2019 in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Alright, Kane. This one's kind of hard to see with the dark pen. There we go. This was the Pikeville Comic-Con, Pikeville, Kentucky. That was in August of 2018. Hope to get Ken Patera someday. Alright, we got Kevin Sullivan at WrestleCade 2019. Got both of the Killer Bees at 80s Wrestling Con in New Jersey last year. Alright, then when we met Steve Lombardi, he also signed for Kim Chi. This was the 80s Wrestling Con also. And very thankful I got this one. King Kong Bundy was at WrestleCade in North Carolina in 2018. This was November 2018, and then I think he died in March, just a few months later. One of the big heels when I was a kid in the 80s. Very thankful to meet him. He was very kind. Alright, Kofi Kingston. This was at a WWE Live event in Huntington, West Virginia, right after he won the title in New York at WrestleMania, just a couple of weeks later. We had aisle seats for that event, and we had our Sharpie ready to go, and he got up and he grabbed the Sharpie and he went to town, and the Sharpie had dried out. So the first part of the signature was pretty dull. Hopefully, maybe he can redo that someday. Alright, Coco Beware was at the Wrestle Legends in Hilliard, Ohio. Those were all 80s stars at that event, by the way. That was Hilliard, Ohio in summer of 2018. Alright, Kurt Angle. This was another one from Toronto. This was actually a free signing at a Toys R Us. It was either Friday or Saturday morning of SummerSlam weekend. And you just had to get up early and get in line, and the first people in line got to meet him at Toys R Us and get the autograph. Very thankful for that one. Okay, Lanny Poffo was at WrestleCon in New Orleans. Okay, we got Road Warrior Animal, who just passed away just a couple of weeks ago. This was also at the Wrestle Legends in Hilliard, Ohio, summer of 2018. Later was signed by Paul Ellering at WrestleCade 2018. When I handed the book over to Animal to sign this, as he grabbed for it, his thumb hit right there and tore the page, and it actually tore the next 2 or 3 pages. A little bummed about that, and I could tell that he was bummed about it too, but, you know, what can you do? Thankful we got to meet him still. Lex Luger was at WrestleCon New Orleans. There's that tear again. Lillian Garcia was at WrestleCade last year, and Lita was WrestleCon in New York. Lou Albano, another great one from my childhood. Okay, Luke Harper signed this at WrestleMania Access in New York. I wanted to get Mantar. He was at WrestleCon in New York, but I never found his table. Okay, one table I did find at that event was Mark Henry. Very thankful to meet him. He was very kind to my son. So yeah, that was WrestleCon New York. We had a good long talk with him. Marty Jannetty, WrestleCade 2018. I don't know why he chose gold. I guess that's just what was in his hand. Later, he also signed the Rockers page, and I made sure he grabbed a black one for that. At the same event, WrestleCade, was the Masked Superstar. That's when Bill Eadie, when he signed the Demolition Axe page earlier too. That was at the same event. Okay, Jimmy Hart and Brutus Beefcake both signed this at Wrestle Legends in Hilliard, Ohio, 2018. Melina, WrestleCade, 2019. And Oscar signed this at WrestleCon in New York. I had not planned to get him. We were walking past his table. He saw that I was carrying the encyclopedia in my hand, and he called me over there and he said, "Now I know I've never signed your encyclopedia before." And I tried to explain to him as kindly as I could that it just wasn't in my budget for this time around. Had a very tight budget that year, and he said, "Well, I'll tell you what, I'll go ahead and sign it for you anyway." So I was very thankful for that. And Oscar, if I ever meet you again, I will pay you back, I promise. Alright, McFoley, he signed this at WrestleCon in New Orleans. One of our first signatures in here. Bobby Fulton, that was that event in Chillicothe that he runs. He signed the Fantastics page. That was March of 2019, just a couple of weeks before WrestleMania. Ted DiBiase, this was at WrestleCon in New Orleans. Now we got several here on the ministry page. Farouk signed it first. That was WrestleCade 2018. Christian and Edge both signed it at Lexington last year. And then Gangrel signed it at WrestleCade last year. I'm saving a spot right here for ever we meet the Undertaker again, so he can sign it right there. Okay, Mojo Rawley. That was the Toronto SummerSlam meet and greets last summer. Okay, IRS, he signed that at WrestleCade 2018, and then this was another meeting with Ted DiBiase, not the original one. This was at WrestleCon in New York. Had him sign this page as well as the NWO page coming up later. Alright, Mr. Hughes, when we met Henry Godwin in Barbersville, West Virginia, summer of 2019. For a Bluegrass Championship Wrestling. Would have loved to have met Mr. Perfect. Got both of the Nasty Boys at WrestleCade 2018. And then several of the Nation members here. Farouk, WrestleCade 18. And then D-Lo, and Mark Henry were all WrestleCon in New York. And then Typhoon, that was one of the other pages that he signed when he signed 3 pages for the price of 1. Very nice guy. Maybe one day we'll add The Rock to this page. Right. Okay, Billy Gunn signed this. This was another one from WrestleCade in 2018. I think he signed 5 pages in all. Barry Windham, that was the event that my son went to with my dad in Julian, West Virginia last year, All-Star Wrestling. And then we got Skip Sheffield, or Ryback. He signed this in Huntington, West Virginia at Tricon, summer of 2019. And then Heath Slater signed this last weekend in Julian, West Virginia. Nikolai Volkov. Now, I really kicked myself about this one too, because he was at WrestleCon in New Orleans, and as I've said earlier, I was new to the meet and greet game. I didn't quite know what I was doing, didn't have a game plan set out. And he was there. I walked past him several times. I could have gotten his autograph and I didn't. And he was later supposed to appear at the Wrestle Legends event at Hilliard, Ohio, and he died 1 month before it. I regret that always. At the same event, Wrestle Legends, that's where we met the one-man gang, Akeem. Okay, so this was the one, this was All-Star Wrestling in Madison, West Virginia. All four of these guys were at the table together. Gary Dameron brought all these Midnight Express, Bobby Eaton, Jim Cornette, Stan Lane, and Dennis Condrey. They were all there. It was a great event. That was in April of 2019, a couple of weeks after WrestleMania. And then both of these guys, Rock and Roll Express, were at WrestleCade 2018. Okay, all of these were, well, three of these were at WrestleCade 2018. Magnum TA, Nikita Koloff, and Jimmy Valiant. And then later, Tully Blanchard signed this at WrestleCon in New York. Alright, the NXT page. We met Sasha Banks WrestleMania weekend in New York. She was at a Foot Locker store promoting a new shoe. And this was one of those free signatures that if you got there early enough and got in line, you could get to meet her. So she's on the NXT page as well as her own page that you'll see later. Papa Shango from WrestleCon New York. Really hope to get Pat Patterson soon. Paul Ellering was WrestleCade 2018. And then Mr. Wonderful here. The whole reason I went to that 80s Wrestling Con event in New Jersey last year was to meet this man. One of the big heels. Main evented the first WrestleMania when I was a kid, and I just really wanted a chance to meet him. I know he's getting up there in age, and I've heard from several people that his health was not so great, so I did not delay in meeting him. Very thankful. Another one I hope to add, another full pager. Okay, nothing on these pages. And then we have the Powers of Pain. So the Barbarian signed this in Barboursville, West Virginia, summer of 2018, and then the Warlord signed it at WrestleCade 2019, where they were actually there together. So we met the Barbarian second time there. Titus O'Neil signed this in Toronto at the SummerSlam meet and greets last summer. And Primo at WrestleMania Access in New York. Alright, big page here, Randy Orton. Let's try to get that. So this was at the Toronto SummerSlam meet and greets last summer. He signed it as the Viper. As much as a heel as he plays on TV, he was a very nice guy. Very thankful to meet him. Raven was at WrestleCade 2019. And one of my top two favorite guys of all time, him and Andre. Would have loved to have met them. Rick Rude would have been another great one to meet. Okay, we got Razor Ramon Scott Hall at WrestleCon in New Orleans, 2018. Repo Man, that was at 80s Wrestling Con in New Jersey last year. Rey Mysterio, WrestleMania Access in New York. Very glad to get him. And the very first signature ever in the book was Rhino, WrestleMania Access in New Orleans, when he and Heath Slater shared a table. Alright, we got both Rhythm and Blues. Jimmy Hart and Honky Tonk Man both signed it at the event in Chillicothe, Ohio that Bobby Fulton runs. And then Greg Valentine at WrestleCon in New York, the second time we met Greg Valentine. Ric Flair, this was WrestleCon in New Orleans. Okay, Ricky Steamboat, the same event with the Honky Tonk Man in Chillicothe, Ohio, March of 2019. Rikishi, WrestleCon New York. Alright, here's a good spread right here. This is Rob Van Dam in WrestleCon New York. Mick Foley, this was the second time we met Mick Foley. He was at the Pikeville event with Kane and Al Snow, August 2018. So he signed here. Leave a spot for The Rock one day. Okay, so then earlier you saw the Marty Jannetty autograph in gold. So I had him pick up the black marker before we got to the Rockers page. So that was WrestleCade 2018, and then Shawn Michaels signed it, WrestleCon in New York. We got 3 Shawn Michaels signatures that day. This one, the DX, and then his full page, which you'll see soon. Yeah, probably not going to happen. Alright, Roman Reigns in silver. This was at a World of Wheels event in Indianapolis, Indiana. This was just about 2 or 3 weeks before he returned from his leukemia diagnosis, when he came back and said that he was in remission. I think this was February, maybe, of 2019. That was basically a free signing. It was just like a $20 admission to get in, and then you had to get there early enough to get in line. He also signed the Shield page. Then Ron Simmons, WrestleCade 2018. Rugged Ronnie Garvin. This was the first signature that we got at WrestleCon in New York last year. It started off the whole weekend for us. Another great one I wish I could have met. Love Piper. Okay, Ryback. That was the Tri-Con in Huntington, West Virginia, in summer of 2019. June 2019. Okay, Saba Simba. That was from the Wrestle Legends in Columbus, Ohio, Hilliard, Ohio. Sandman, WrestleCade 2019. And there's the other Sasha Banks autograph from the Foot Locker in New York City. Times Square, New York City. WrestleMania weekend in New York. Okay, Scott Steiner signed this at WrestleCade 2018. Sergeant Slaughter, Wrestle Legends, Hilliard, Ohio, summer of 2018. And there's the first time we met Shane Douglas in Barbersville, West Virginia. Bluegrass Championship Wrestling, summer of 2018. Okay, there's WrestleCon 2019 in New York. Shelton Benjamin was at the Toronto SummerSlam meet and greets last summer. There's the Roman Reigns Shield autograph at the Indianapolis World of Wheels in February of 19. And there's the last one from MegaCon Orlando, Shinsuke Nakamura, 2018. Psycho Sid, WrestleCade, 2019. Skinner, Steve Kern, WrestleCade 2018. Heath Slater, another one we got last weekend in Julian, West Virginia. And another one from Billy Gunn, WrestleCade 2018. Alright, another Barry Windham autograph from Julian, West Virginia in February 2019. And then Stan Lane at All-Star Wrestling in Madison, West Virginia, April of 2019. Alright, got both of the Steiners here. Scott Steiner signed it at WrestleCade in 2018, and then Rick Steiner did it last year at WrestleCade. Alright, another one of the main reasons we drove all the way to Toronto for the SummerSlam meet and greets, when Stephanie and Triple H had their own meet and greet. Very glad to get this one. That's a pretty rare one. And then Sting, that was at WrestleCon in New Orleans, the first time we met Sting of 2 times. And the next one's probably the rarest one that we have, and one of the most sought after autographs in the business. Stone Cold Steve Austin, who signed it in gold. Makes it a little hard to see in the glare. This was WrestleCon in New Orleans in 2018, and as I said before, that was this trip, this WrestleMania weekend, was the first time we had ever really done meet and greets. And originally I didn't really think of getting any autographs from anyone. I just thought we would do some pro photo ops or some selfies and be done with it. But I had already purchased the WrestleMania Access meet and greet with Goldberg, which included an autograph. So it's like, well, what are we going to get signed from Goldberg? Because we don't collect figures or promos or photos or anything like that. So I knew we needed to get something. And well, we could get a figure. I don't know what we'll do. And it didn't really hit me until just about a week before we left for New Orleans that, well, we could have Goldberg sign the encyclopedia. And then it was like a light bulb went off in my head. I was like, wait, we can have lots of people sign the encyclopedia. But by that time, Stone Cold was already announced like 2 months before, and his tickets went out. His tickets sold out really, really quickly. But then I remembered that they said at the end of the day, if there was some time left over when all of the prepaid tickets were finished, they would have like a waiting list of people who could get autographs at the end of the day. So this was on Saturday of WrestleMania weekend. We were finishing up the day. I told you earlier about the Edge autograph that we got. It was like the very end of the day. He was wrapping up and leaving, and we just barely got him in the nick of time. So we were like, okay, we're finished. Let's go ahead and leave. We walked out of the large room, looked down the end of the hallway where Stone Cold had his own separate signing area. Looked down at the end of the hallway, and there was the line for Stone Cold. And I thought, oh yeah, I forgot about that. I'd already spent a lot of money. I said, but yeah, when are you ever going to get the chance to meet Stone Cold Steve Austin again? So I went downstairs, found an ATM machine, got some more cash out. My son was like, what are we doing? I was like, let's go get Stone Cold. And there it is. Thankfully, the people who were waiting in line, they let us come in, and he was very nice. He complimented my son on his handshake, told him he had a pretty good firm grip. It was great meet and greet, and so thankful that we got it. Okay, the Sultan, which is Rikishi, WrestleCon, New York, Tito Santana and the Strike Force from Wrestle Legends in Hilliard, Ohio. Sonny, again, the only person in this book with a signature who I have not met. That was the one in Julian, West Virginia, All-Star Wrestling. Another one I really hope to meet, but I know is very slim chance. I know he does not travel much anymore and has lots of health issues. Tatanka was at the Wrestle Legends in Hilliard, Ohio, along with many, many others. Okay, we got Kane, signed this one at the Pikeville Comic-Con in 2018, and then Daniel Bryan added his name in Toronto last summer. Possibly the top of my wish list right now would be Terry Funk. I've tried so many times to get to meet him, and every event that I saw where he was going to be last year, he ended up canceling. And then he was supposed to be at Tampa WrestleCon this year, and we were ready to go, and then it got canceled. So bummed out. Really, really want to meet him. Okay, Teddy Long, one of the very first signatures we ever got. That was WrestleMania Access in New Orleans, 2018. Titus O'Neil, the Toronto SummerSlam meet and greets last year, and then the other one from Tito at the Wrestle Legends in Hilliard, Ohio. Alright, Tonga Kid, Tama, that was WrestleCon in New York last year, and then Tony Atlas, another one from Wrestle Legends, Hilliard, Ohio, when he signed the Saba Simba page. Probably the first person we ever had to sign it twice. I really just hadn't had that idea in my head at that time. Not sure why though. Tony Schiavone, WrestleCon, New York. Okay, then the Triple H. This was the Toronto meet and greet SummerSlam. We wanted to get a green to match his entrance when he wrestles, but the only green he had was this really faint green, and it just didn't turn out the way we wanted to. If I ever get a chance to meet him again, maybe he'll go over it with a darker green. I don't know if that would mess it up or not. I don't know. I might leave it alone. But anyway, there's Triple H. And then Trish at WrestleCon in New York. And the third Fred Ottman signature, the Tugboat Typhoon and Big Man Steel trio, the Wrestle Legends in Hilliard, Ohio. Never got to meet Ultimate Warrior, one of my other favorites from my childhood. I was one of the ones who cheered when he beat Hulk Hogan for the title. I was kind of getting sick of Hulkamania by that time. Okay, Mike Rotunda signed this at WrestleCade 2018, and another Barry Windham autograph in Julian, West Virginia at All-Star Wrestling. The Usos both signed this at WrestleMania Access in New York last year. Okay, back to the Undertaker again. We had the Brothers of Destruction page earlier. So I said this is my son's favorite wrestler of all time, and we did not want to lose a chance to meet him. We actually previously met him before we ever got this book. It was our very first meet and greet. Took him to Long Island, New York, to Ace Comic-Con. Ace Comic-Con in Long Island, New York, December of 2017, before we got the book. So he did not sign it there. But then exactly 1 year to the day later, in December of 18, he did this signing at a sports pub in Charleston, South Carolina, which is about, I think it was 8 or 9 hours from here. So this turned into a 25-hour road trip. Got up very early on a Saturday morning, drove all the way to Charleston, South Carolina, got there around 3 in the afternoon, ordered us some food. The event started around 6 p.m. We were one of the first ones in line. He signed the Brothers page and his main page here. If I would have coughed up some more money, we could have gotten an extra autograph to finish that Ministry of Darkness page. But again, it was around Christmas time, and I just couldn't do it. I wish I had now, though. Anyway, very nice guy to talk to. Any meet and greet with Undertaker is usually pretty quick because they really push you through the line to get as many in as possible. But we just told him how happy we were that we got to see him at WrestleMania in New Orleans with the John Cena match. And he was very kind with us. Got the signature, got right back on the road and drove all the way home. Got home around 6 a.m. the next day. It was a long trip. Very thankful we did it, though. I actually would have met Vader at the WrestleCon in New Orleans, but he got sick 1 month before that. He was a scheduled guest there. He got sick and went to the hospital, and it was just a few months later when he passed. Okay, Aiden English signed this at WrestleMania Access in New York. Vicky Guerrero, WrestleCon in New York. And Virgil was at the 80s Wrestling Con in New Jersey last year. Maybe someday we'll get to add this one, but like The Rock, I doubt it. The Warlord at WrestleCade last year, and I do hope I get to add Wendy Richter. She was pretty much the top female star when I was growing up. Alright, very thankful to get the Great Muta at WrestleCade 2019. I asked him if he would sign it in both English and Japanese, and that's what you see there. At least I guess it is. I wouldn't know. Alright, got Scott Norton from WrestleCon in New York. Missy Hyatt, same place. And Bobby Eaton at All-Star Wrestling in Madison, West Virginia. And the NWO page. Alright, various places and people on here. I'll leave out the places to try to shorten this up. First 4 people that signed it, they were all sitting at a table together. WrestleCade 2018, it was, let me get the glare off of there. Buff signed it, and then he passed it on down to Scott Steiner, who passed it on down to Kevin Nash, who passed it on down to Scott Hall. However, Scott Hall, I'm pretty sure, was drunk at this time because he could barely stay awake at the table. And Kevin Nash nudged him a little bit to wake up and say, "Hey, sign here." And he woke up and barely held the marker, and he signed it as Razor Ramon instead of Scott Hall. Pretty sure he didn't know what he was doing at that moment. And we've also got Lex Luger here, Ted DiBiase, Sting, The Disciple, Scott Norton, Vincent, Eric Bischoff, and Six, X-Pac, and Great Muta. I think that's 12 or 13 in total. If we had made it to the Tampa WrestleMania Access this year and I had that ticket for Hulk Hogan, then he would have added his name right there. Okay, so now Booker T signed this at WrestleCon in New York, and then later at WrestleCade, Stevie Ray signed it. Both of those were in 2019. Very thankful to get this one here. I think this one is probably a rare one. Jushin Thunder Liger. This was WrestleCon in New York. This was actually the first signature we got at WrestleCon in New York. This was on a Thursday night before the Friday morning show started. Okay, no one on this page yet. Both of the Wild Samoans, Sika and Afa, were at WrestleCade 2019. Not a whole lot left here. Winding things up. Okay, so Jimmy Garvin, I mentioned earlier we met him twice. First he signed the Freebirds page at Madison, West Virginia. And then we waited until WrestleCade, just a couple of weeks later, where he signed this page, the WCCW page. Really hoping to add this one too. He was going to be at the Gathering this year along with Butch of the Bushwhackers. Of course, that event, like everything, got canceled this year. At that same WrestleCade event where Scott Hall was passed out, they both signed this page. Actually, I didn't even ask him to sign this page, but Kevin Nash insisted. Said, okay, go ahead. Okay, Luke Harper signed the Wyatt family at WrestleMania Access in New York. Okay, at the same house show where Kofi Kingston signed the book in Huntington, West Virginia, Xavier Woods also signed it. And same deal with Xavier Woods, the Sharpie was kind of dry by the time he got around to us. Looks a little better than Kofi's signature though. And X-Pac, this was at Steel City Con in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, August of 2019. And last but not least, Tiny Lister. I think that says Tiny Lister. Zeus. WrestleCade 2019. Glad to get him too. Okay, so that's everything I have to this point on Thursday, October the 8th in 2020. Hopefully sometime soon we'll be able to add a whole lot more. Thanks for watching, guys.